I really wish it were only pounds that they're wasting, Chamberlain. What about the human resources? That can never be recovered. Well, if you lose money, you can always make it back.
Yeah.
But when lives are lost, how do we wake the dead up? That's a big question.
Regulatory bodies. I've heard allegations that some of these bodies, when they get into those sites,
they look away.
Yeah, and then when they're induced, they look away. So you can't have regulatory bodies who are trusted with doing the job, and then you get in there, do something else. So what should the authorities do if you're actually put in there to do a job? So it's a cycle that we need to keep addressing to ensure that the right things are done. Because at the end of the day, if you don't do the right things, you never know. It's like throwing what do they say, stone in the what's that proverbial one in the market.
You never know who it will hit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then speaking about which, the protests. First of all, Laulu is here with us, former presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
So many things in this happening this week. The one that seems to be gathering momentum because there are several meetings being held to stave it off is a protest.
Yeah.
This land protest, of which some say they don't know who the leaders are. But of course, some government people are already accusing certain people of being behind it. But in terms of how all of this is playing out, both from the organizers, the planners, the governments who are meeting, and the narratives, what's your impression of it?
Yeah. Well, I think that first and foremost, it's important for all of us to understand whatever could be the basis of this kind of protest that is being planned. I think it is helpful to have some kind of feedback from the people to the people in government to let them understand the urgency of their work, and to stress what is clearly the impact of the hardship on the people. So to that extent, it is very useful even for people in government, to understand that the things that we are doing, we are here for the people. The decisions that we take or the decisions that we don't take have, an undeniable impact on the day-to-day living of a huge number of people. So it's helpful for that reason. And secondly, yes, people have the right to protest. That is not only, I think it's not only a fundamental right to protest, but even in a democracy, dissent, the place of dissent has to be, eroded. We have to understand that to have an effective democracy, we must have some dissent. The question is, how do you resolve the dissent? Now, the other part of the issue is that there has been quite a lot of undertones about, this impending protest. If you are active in some of the WhatsApp groups, there is an ethnic dimension to it, which is quite worrying. Because people are calling attention to stuff that has happened in this country and the kind of damage that has happened. Some people are saying that, look, the last time we had this kind of protest, people destroyed public infrastructure and properties of individuals from a particular portion of the country and left out. So that is a thing of concern. Because we don't want something that is clearly going to be ethnic motivated. The problems that we have, or tribal motivated, or in any of our, how do you call it, detention lines. We don't want something that is divisive if it's necessary to have a protest to speak out. But when you hear this very serious undertone, and I would say, especially in Lagos State, there's a burgeoning of people to say that, look, some people want to destroy Lagos, and this also happened the last time. So that gives a big question mark to the credibility of the planning of the protest.
Anyone who gives this, for those who might be those ethnic jingoes, I think they should be ashamed of themselves, really, because, they should be able to read between the lines. But let me show you this and get your impression. I'm going to ask of this one, but listen to this for a moment.
The subsidy or not, we will still be in problem. If they remove subsidy, they will share the money. They have already shared it before collecting it. They say over 400 billion will go to Jonathan's government. Over 400 billion will go to state government. Over 200 billion will go to local government. They have already spent the money before they earn it. They are just fooling Colade to come and supervise an empty collection. No force on earth can stop this revolution. The fact that I am here today with my children, with all these wonderful Nigerians, send the message to Abuja and wherever they are that the struggle for which we have been planning and working all these years have now taken off. Governor of the Central Bank, Sanusi, came to Lagos and said, if you don't remove fuel subsidy, Nigeria will collapse. This country is not going to collapse.
So there you go. 2012 in Lagos, the Occupy Nigeria protest. So that happened in Lagos at the time, and there was no issue. The ACN to kicked against it at the time was PDP that was a ruling party. And it turned out that only recently, I think former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Fahimi, was saying at an event that was organized, I think in Abuja, he says, look, some of these things, it's all politics. They did it at the time, but it was all politics. So that was his narrative. So if these kinds of people, I mean, you also have Mr. Fadana's voice, if these kind of people were to come out August 1, will people be worried that dogs and everything will go wrong with this?
So I mean, and I'm grateful that you actually brought this up. So we know those people that we saw on the screen. But these are not people that, you say, where are they coming from? You don't really question their motivations the way, we are having to deal with now. There have been people like Shuwore, who have been speaking in support of the protest, but I'm not even sure whether Shuwore is even involved in the planning himself. We don't know who the leaders are. And that doesn't mean anything really in terms of whether it is not going to be credible. It doesn't matter, people can just get up and protest. It's their right. Where I think the credibility comes in, and which the leaders of the protest have to manage sensitively and properly, is that look, this cannot be perceived as an ethnic agenda. Please, we don't want in this country a destruction. People should protest. If I knew the people that were planning this protest, I would say that I would join the protest. Okay? It's within my right. But we don't know the folks that are behind this. They have the right to do it. And what we are hearing in terms of all this ethnic jingoism that is going on is disturbing. But do people have the right to protest? Absolutely. Is there a basis for protest? Absolutely. People are suffering. There are serious problems, and that like we saw in that 2012, we know people set up, people that have quite a bit of credibility, people that have demonstrated a level of public interest and try to defend a common good. We haven't seen that so far in terms of this.
But look at this next one. It wasn't just ACN at the time, too, but when he eventually changed, so the DNA was still there. Former President Buhari, which he served under, himself, Chief BC Akonde, at the time, they all marched to INEC in protest as well at the time. I think it had to do with the Anambra governorship elections at that time too. So they also went out there and protested, and nobody batted an eyelid. Yes, government was concerned, but they still went out there and protested.
It will be interesting to see, some of the, if we're looking at it from the point of view of the political divide, it will be interesting to see some of the political leaders, or people that have public interest to come out and say that, look, okay, this is we are behind this, and we're going to do this.
Has backed it,
and it is within. I don't know whether the article is even in the country as we speak. I don't know. And I don't say that in any way just to say that. Well, look, if article comes out, for instance, let's say that if article says that yes, I'm going to be part of this protest, then the protest begins to gather credibility. Very, very simple, because we can then say that okay, we know this guy, we know this. If the folks in LP, the folks in PDP, or some of their friends, or their
there's another interesting one. Okay, just inform. Let's see who can listen to that. I think it's quite interesting.
Represent the interests of Nigerians. They are all compromised electoral officers. They have committed many criminal offenses by rigging elections against Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, so
He was a president then, now, but that was him then.
absolutely. So and that's the point. I don't think that the president himself, or any reasonable member of his government will ever come out to say that people don't have the right to protest. I mean, that would be completely absurd. Knowing the pedigree of the president, just like we saw the president. I think somebody even said that the president is the father of protesters in Nigeria. So clearly, the right of the Nigerian people to protest at any given time, is fundamental. And I think even the law provides for the police, to guide, and protect people that are protesting. So I don't have any problem with that. The issue that we have to, it's important to talk about this so that we can avoid, the ethnic dimension, and what might be the ethnic targeting. Because once people are talking, and the boss is very loud in social media. It's very loud that, okay, some people want to attack this place, some people think, this was what happened the last time they destroyed this, they didn't destroy that. We don't want that.
Do you think it's propaganda, though? Some people will say, look, those who do not want it will begin to spin anything to, try and turn what was supposed to be a legitimate protest on its head to whip up sentiment. And that is the sort of thing that will now begin to make people withdraw, or to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, or to say, is that the original plan? So do you think that this could be propaganda that has been fed into the entire discourse of the protest just to, whip up sentiments?
Well, so there's no way that we can dismiss that. We don't know whether that is actually the case. But what we know is that there is evidence in the past, that certain properties were destroyed, and it will suggest, it will seem as if there were some deliberate attempt to destroy certain infrastructure, destroy certain properties, and the claims that certain people were left out is also there. I haven't checked that. So my point is that, yes, somebody might
It's
have...
interesting you say you haven't checked that, because, I remember the NSAS protest. They happened at the Lekki toll gate, and then remember I was there for days peacefully.
Yeah.
That protest was largely peaceful until the night when soldiers, every time people talk about how the NSAS protest was, became disheveled and caused chaos after a while. It did not happen immediately. Something happened, events led to it becoming chaotic.
Right.
So after it became chaotic and, it was seen that there were just random attacks,
Right.
what it appeared to the ordinary eye was that these were, people who had just gone berserk. And it wasn't just in Lagos. That berserkness affected many other parts of the country, even as far as the northern parts of Nigeria, which largely did not take part in the NSAS protest. So when these allegations come up that certain properties were targeted, yes, we know that establishments were targeted,
Right.
Political establishments that were thought to belong to political people, but largely it would seem that the rampage was just random, so to speak, unless of course government officials at that time knew something and would
All of these things are clearly possibilities that, yes, we had a decent protest up to the point it went berserk, and when it went berserk, there were unpremeditated attacks, and there were premeditated attacks.
So
it mixed.
that cannot be ruled out.
Yeah,
But
that's
generally, because we saw businesses, generally, is it in Surulere, is it in Lekki? We saw international businesses, ShopRite, for instance, were looted in almost every place that we saw. So it would seem that the destruction and the general or wanton looting that followed that particular protest was general in nature. So do you think that, we cannot rule out people who use the opportunity to now start to target, but to say that...
And there was narrative at that time
Yeah.
that was going out. I don't like this has to stop. But when you begin to say, when you want to use a protest to change a government, now that's against the constitution, it's against the law, because the law says that this is how government is changed. There's an election every 4 years, and once within our system, regardless of the problems, that once somebody emerges as governor or president or senator, they have 4 years. The only way to remove them is through an impeachment or resignation or death. So if we are going to have a protest that we say, sack the government, we want the government sacked. And I guess to the extent that you have freedom of speech, you can say that, but also the people who are involved also have the right to say, no, I have the mandate, I have a constitutional legal mandate to be here for 4 years. So that is also something, a contention that we have to also discuss openly.
I know that my colleague Ayo is ready to get into this. Let me quickly let him in. Otherwise, I will be on to the end. Ayo, please.